I never imagined the lonely customer I served would change my life forever. I still remember that chilly Thursday evening. The wind howled outside, rattling the old diner's windows like a ghost craving attention. The flickering neon sign buzzed in the dim light, casting eerie shadows. I wiped down the counter nervously. It was one of those nights. The clock ticked slowly, heartlessly. That's when he walked in. A tall man, hollow-eyed and wearing a coat that carried the weight of secrets. His hands trembled as he clutched a small, crumpled piece of paper. I could see his fingers, pale and cold, desperately seeking warmth. He settled in a booth at the far end, his gaze drifting outside like he was waiting for someone who'd never come. I hesitated, my breath stuck in my throat. My instinct told me he was more than just a lonely customer. He had a presence that whispered of sorrow, and something deeper, a heaviness that filled the air around him. I approached with a shaky smile, my heart rate quickening. "What can I get you?" I managed, my voice barely breaking the silence. "Coffee." "Black," he replied, his voice raspy, like sandpaper against skin. I nodded and hurried back to the coffee pot, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. As I poured the dark liquid into a chipped mug, I glanced back at him. He was staring at that piece of paper like it held the answers to the universe. His expression had haunted me, a mix of hope and despair. My heart ached for him. When I set the coffee down, his eyes flickered to mine, a fleeting connection. "Thank you," he whispered, but there was something in his tone, a warning wrapped in gratitude. I felt a chill run through me. I took a step back, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. What was it about this man? Why did he feel like a puzzle I couldn't solve? I watched him in quiet fascination as he sipped, his focus still lost on that crumpled paper. The diner was alive with chatter, but the sound faded away around us, creating an invisible barrier. Time stretched unnaturally. The air thickened with anticipation. Then, just as suddenly as he had entered, he pulled the paper from the table, opening it slowly like revealing a treasure. My breath hitched. There was something written there, something that looked like coordinates. My pulse raced. What did they mean? I glanced around. The other customers were oblivious, smiles lighting up their faces while our little world spiraled into something mysterious and dark. I couldn't tear my gaze away from him. The way his fingers traced the ink on the paper, as though he was searching for a way out. A chorus of voices, laughter, and clinking dishes faded into nothingness that I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. "Are you okay?" The words fell out, clutching at the air between us. His piercing gaze met mine, and I felt a jolt. There was a storm brewing behind those eyes, desperation, fear, and an inkling of hope. "I'm looking for something," he said, his voice a haunted whisper that I wanted to know more. What was he searching for? What lay ahead of him? Just then, he leaned in closer, urgency sparking in his eyes. "You never saw me," he said, sharp and intense. "This is bigger than both of us." My chest tightened at the weight of his words. An unspoken question lingered. Should I help him, or should I run? And in that moment, everything shifted. My life, my safety, teetered on the edge of a choice I never anticipated. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days blurred into an unrecognizable stretch of time after that fateful encounter. The chill of the diner remained a constant companion, but the memory of the man with the haunted eyes fueled an unease in me that simmered just below the surface. I still clocked in, still served the regulars with their mundane stories and harmless laughter, but every clink of the coffee cups and every slice of pie felt like a flimsy mask slathered over deeper woes. That Thursday had slipped away, but the echoes of his desperate whisper hung in the air around me. "You never saw me." It played in my mind like a haunting melody. The diner bustled as usual, yet for me, time had grown thick and heavy, suffocating under the weight of what I couldn't understand. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all more than a mere coincidence. It had become a matter of fate that I had thought of that crumpled paper more than I could admit. What did those coordinates represent? A place, perhaps, where he was meant to find something or someone. I had seen curiosity turn to obsession, but this was different. It was tinged with desperation, the kind that makes you act against your better judgment. Then, one evening, a wave of unexpected kindness swept through the diner. A regular, an elderly woman named Gladys, shuffled in with a warm pie nestled in her arms, a broad smile splitting her face just like her homemade crust. "I made this for you, dear," she said, her voice warm and soft, wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. I blinked back tears. I often felt alone among the clamor, and yet here was someone just thinking of me. It was the first spark of light in days. "Thank you, Gladys. You always know how to lift my spirits," I replied, my voice breaking slightly. The pie smelled divine, and for a brief moment, I lost myself in the mundane beauty of life around me. The laughter and chatter flowed freely in the din, and for an instant, the weight of the world lifted just a touch. But as I took the pie to the back to slice, shadows nestled back into my heart, threading through the fleeting joy. Later that evening, the familiar creak of the diner door pulled me from my scattered thoughts. My heart dropped into my stomach when I saw him again, the hollow-eyed man, stepping inside, vigilance etched into his features. The world outside had dimmed into twilight, casting an even eerier glow around him. His coat was wrapped tighter, as if it could shield him from burdens I couldn't even fathom. He glanced around, catching my eye with a quickness that made my breath hitch. I needed to," he started, but his words faltered as he saw the other patrons. My heart raced, torn between the desire to help him and the fear of drawing attention to our intimacy. "Come to the back," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could second-guess myself. He hesitated but followed, the door shutting quietly behind him, blocking the sound of laughter and clattering pans. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "I need your help," he said, urgency pressing against each syllable. "The coordinates there leading me to someone who could change everything." "Everything? What are you talking about?" I replied, clutching the edge of the table. He leaned in closer, his voice dipping to a soft, almost conspiratorial whisper. "There's a girl, lost like me. This is about saving her," he said, his eyes burning with a fervor that made my heart ache. Clarity pierced through my fear. The wait for someone or something before him. Had he been searching for her all along? But how? What happened? I pressed that. He shook his head, tension rippling through him. "I'm being watched. It's getting desperate, but I can't do this alone. I need you to believe me." And in that moment, I felt an involuntary tug, like an invisible thread pulling me toward him. I saw in his eyes the reflection of my own longing for purpose, the innate desire to reach out past the barriers of fear and safety. In that crowded diner, with candles flickering like restless spirits, I understood. I had stepped into a story much larger than myself. But before I could voice my thoughts, the door swung open, and in marched two figures dressed in dark clothes, men with cold eyes that scanned the diner like hunters seeking their prey. My heart fell to my stomach, the realization crashing over me like tidal waves. He wasn't just in danger, we both were. "Run," he hissed, and the words shattered any moments of newfound hope. In an instant, the warmth of the diner was eclipsed by the chilling reality of our circumstance. Trepidation gripped me as I stepped backward, and in the chaos, I knew that whatever this story was about, nothing could prepare me for the depths of darkness waiting just outside. The aroma of coffee and baked goods filled the air, but all I could register was the pounding of my heart, a relentless drum signaling impending peril. The man, his name was still unknown to me, had pushed me to a precipice I never knew existed, and now the storm gathered. "Please," he breathed, his breath short with panic. The dark-dressed figures prowled the diner, their eyes sharp and scanning. I could see a faint hint of fear in his determined gaze. A man had been living with shadows far too long. But who was it that they were after? I glanced toward the entrance, where the diner's warm light flickered against the encroaching dark. My instincts screamed at me to flee, to abandon this dangerous interlude, and seek solace in the predictable rhythm of my mundane life. But the magnetic pull of his desperation rooted me to the spot, anchored in place by an invisible thread that intertwined our fates. "Please," he urged again, desperation clinging to his voice like a lifeline. "If I can get to her, Everything will change. You have to trust me. Trust. The words settled heavily in the air around us, vibrant yet distant. Never once had I imagined being pulled into a life-altering decision within the confines of a simple diner. Yet the connection between us felt instantly forged by something deeper. Helplessness, hope, and an inexplicable urgency. The men's serious faces bore down upon us, their eyes like hawks spotting a chance to pounce. A surge of courage ignited within me, and I grimaced against the tidal wave of uncertainty. "We can't stay here," I said, wielding my voice like a weapon against the encroaching threat. "Can you lead them away somehow?" His eyes flared with gratitude, but they also held a tremor of hesitation. "I can buy us time, but you have to be ready," he said, steel in his resolve. "You can't hesitate." With a deep breath, I nodded. As he took a step toward the door, the room felt both full and empty. The laughter of patrons dissolved into a distant echo, and the clatter of plates became a mere backdrop to our unraveling drama. He turned back to me, shadows pooling in the hollow of his eyes. "Remember the coordinates?" he asked, promising urgency. "If we can just get away, they'll make sense of it. Allie, need you to trust that there's hope in this." Before I could respond, the men shifted, their tense bodies drawing nearer, their predatory aura pressing against my chest like a vice. The air thickened between us. "Now," he shouted, breaking the spell that tethered us. That we bolted for the back exit, my heart hammering in synchrony with my legs that propelled me forward into the unknown. I felt alive, yet terrified. Fear tasted metallic on my tongue, both exhilarating and suffocating. Outside, the chill of night wrapped around me like a frigid cloak. The world fell away, leaving only the sharp sounds of our hurried breaths and the muted whispers of danger lurking behind. "Stay close," he ordered as we ducked into the shadows, merging with the darkness around the diner. It was nothing less than an act of defiance against the chaos, but also a reckless gamble. The weight of the unknown was a hefty price to pay. As we crouched behind a row of bushes, I felt my skin buzz with adrenaline. My hand brushed the rough surface of the ground, a reminder of how easily everything could slip from my grasp. I thought of Gladys, of the fleeting comfort she had gifted me, and yearned to carry that warmth into the depths of this nightmarish unfolding. After what felt like forever, he peeked out, his guarded expression momentarily flickering with fragility. "They've split up," he murmured. "We need to move now." But just as we were about to resurface, a voice rang out, deep and gravelly, echoing through the darkened streets. "You think you can run? We know all about you, boy." Panic gripped me. Those men were relentless. "What do they want?" I whispered, my voice quaking. He squeezed his eyes shut, pain washing over his features. "It's not about me anymore. They want her, and they'll stop at nothing." A fresh wave of dread coursed through me. The girl he spoke of was more than an abstract figure in our story. She was now intertwined with my fate. How could we do this? How could we fight against forces that had apparently tracked him like a wolf on its prey? Just then, the man's expression shifted. An epiphany sprang forth, lighting a spark in his eyes. "The coordinates, they aren't just locations. They lead to a breakthrough, something fundamental. If we can reach them before they find us, we might have a chance. Or we might be walking into a trap," I pointed out. "Maybe," he conceded, determination set like stone in his features. "But it's the only chance we have." And in that moment of suspended breath, something changed in me, an ember of hope flickering against despair. Whatever lay ahead, I couldn't just stand by. This was my story too. But as we made to start moving, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen lighting up with a namey sister. The message read, "I need you. Come home now." The world shifted beneath my feet. When I needed to run, to vanish into the night with him, my instincts screamed that my family was now entwined with the very conflict I was so desperately trying to escape. "Is it safe to answer?" he whispered urgently, spotting the anxiety that coursed through my veins. "I don't know," I started, my heart clenching. What if they were tracking her too? But before I could decide, a sharp crack split the air. A gunshot rang out, chilling me to the bone. The men had found us, and the stakes had reached a level I couldn't have imagined. What would I choose? Would I rush towards my sister and potentially expose her? Or would I stand my ground for a stranger who might change the course of our lives? Everything hinged on that very moment. and I could already feel the path of my existence teeter dangerously toward an unforeseeable abyss. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled, the air thick with the tension of choice. My mind raced through the possibilities, swirling chaos reflected in my heart. The sudden gunshot outside sliced through my thoughts with cold clarity. I had no time to waste. My grip tightened on my phone, the screen illuminating a world I yearned to return to but now felt uncertain. Even perilous. "We need to go," the man urged, already pulling me away from the safety of the bushes. His urgency snapped me into focus, and I felt the threads of my backbone stiffen. I needed to make a choice, but it felt as if time itself had shivered to a halt, the weight of my decision hanging like a pendulum above us. That I glanced back at the phone, the unanswered plea from my sister pounding in my ears. "She needs me. What if no?" He interrupted, the fierceness in his eyes ignited by desperation. "If you go back, you'll lead them straight to her. Trust me, your sister is safer if you stay put. We can't let them know we're here." The gravity of his words hit like a punch to the gut. I squeezed my eyes shut, the internal conflict between blood ties and burgeoning hope roiling within me. My sister's face flashed before me, youthful and trusting, filled with love that felt like a lifeline tethered to sanity in this chaotic descent. But those men didn't just want him. They were hell-bent on destruction. "Come on, we need to move to the rendezvous," he urged again, urgency peeking through the cracks of anxiety in his voice. Rendezvous. The word echoed. I had entrusted myself to this stranger in a way that felt inherently foolish yet right. The memory of his promise surged back to me, a faint tether of hope in the deepening shadows. Perhaps the coordinates represented not only a physical location but the possibility of understanding, of reclaiming something precious, perhaps even safety. I bit my lip, resolve hardening. "All right, let's go," I said firmly, forcing my feet into motion while shoving my phone deep into my pocket. "We'll head east, toward the river. It's the most direct route," he whispered as we darted into the night, dodging any sign of life, any glimmer of the ordinary. We slipped through alleyways and bypassed street lights, always staying just on the cusp of darkness, each footfall muffled against the gritty pavement. Several moments of hurried movement later, I felt a spark of small, flickering embers of camaraderie blooming in the wake of impending danger. With every shared glance, every synchronized heartbeat, I began to trust him in ways that surprised me. He was just as terrified as I was, but we were tethered together in our shared urgency. Suddenly, a sliver of warmth crept into our cold escape. A familiar rustling caught my attention. An old man sat on a park bench, a knitted scarf wrapped around his frail neck, eyes bright despite the gloom that cloaked the city. He spotted us and, without hesitation, reached for something in his coat pocket. "Here?" he called, his voice rich with authority that contradicted his aged features. From his hand, he produced a thermos. "You look like you've been through hell. Warm yourself." We paused, uncertainty painting our faces. Yet something in the man's kind eyes reminded me of the warmth that hadn't yet been extinguished in humanity. I stepped forward, accepting the thermos with a shake in my hands. "Thank you," I managed, feelings of gratitude bubbling up amidst the storm within. I unscrewed the lid and took a tentative sip, sweet, warm, and soothing. In that moment, it became not just a drink but a lifeline, a gesture of kindness that felt like a soft caress against bitter winds. "It's not too far from here to the river," he said, his gaze wandering toward the distant horizon. "Just watch for the shadows. Sometimes, when the stars are hidden, the darkest corners can be deceiving." The man beside me nodded, perhaps understanding the old man's wisdom in ways I still could not fully grasp. "Thank you," I repeated softly, knowing that such simple acts might be the most significant part of our fragile journey. As we prepared to depart, the hum of engines filled the air, a stark reminder of our urgency. But before we could step back into the night, the old man placed a gnarled hand on my arm. "Look out for one another," he said, his voice low yet resonant. "Trust in what your heart tells you. Sometimes it's the only compass you have." With that, we became shadows again, slipping away into the web of darkness, the taste of warmth lingering like a sweet echo. It felt like a fragile blessing I could hold on to. My thoughts danced between my sister and this man who had stepped into my life like a comet blazing through the night. But as we reached the river's edge, heartbeats synced in their fervent race. A piercing scream shattered the veil of night, shuddering through the air and striking fear deep within me. It wasn't just a sound. It was a primal warning, tethered to my existence. "Stay here," he urged, but the instinct to rush toward the sound clawed at me, demanding my attention. "Wait," I whispered, my heart pounding in sync with the impact of that cry. And then, in the distance, I saw a hair-off figure against the moonlit water, a blonde silhouette tangled in shadows. My sister. The realization hit me harder than the chilling revelation of gunfire had before. She hadn't just reached out. She had led them right to us. "Run!" I screamed, every nerve alight with panic, torn between a scream of love and a plea of survival. But the figure was already in their grasp, my heart thrown into chaos as the shadows around her shifted, revealing faces I once saw in nightmares. This was my moment, my razor's edge. Would I risk it all in the pursuit of familial ties when recklessness could plunge us deeper into danger? Thus began the collision of two worlds, both on the brink of destruction, intertwining in one final, desperate bid for survival. We dove into the shadowed embrace of the riverside just as I felt the surge of adrenaline crash into the pit of my stomach. My breathing quickened to match the rapid beat of my heart, each pulse echoing the word, "Run." This was not just about me anymore. My sister was in the crosshairs, her figure still vividly etched in a tapestry of fear and recognition. "Stay here," the man urged, but it felt like an echo of a fading hope. My instincts screamed louder than any voice ever could, and they were telling me that the time for hesitation was over, but my sister, it was her. The stakes had risen to a point beyond logic, and all I could think of were the years spent weaving in and out of the fabric of her life. How we had laughed through our childhood and leaned on one another in darkness. Did she think I wouldn't come for her? "Wait," I hissed, but the words felt weak against the turbulent currents around us. I had to push through the vortex of panic clamoring in my chest. "Don't," he said, gripping my arm tightly, his eyes aflame with urgency. "If you go out there, they will see us." But the moment hung heavy, a fragile balance threatening to snap under pressure. I shook my head fiercely, dislodging his grasp like a surge of water crashing against a dam. "I can't let them take her." Still, I knew the odds. Every heartbeat ached with the weight of uncertainty. Every step closer to the river felt like wading through a minefield of risk. Yet the silhouette of my sister, her slight frame enveloped in shadows, was an anchor in the storm that brewed around us. With clenched fists and stifled cries, I made my move, darting toward the thicket with that haunting scream still echoing in my ears. The adrenaline surged anew, guiding my feet silently along the leaf-strewn path littered with uncertainty. "He'll create a distraction," my companion shouted, his resolve reigniting in the face of an impending storm. Without waiting for my acknowledgement, he veered to the left, slipping into the murky mist that obscured our pursuer's view. "Please, be careful," I whispered to an empty air, my heart lurching at the thought of him facing those men alone. Drawing closer, I could make out her features fragile, terrified, but alive. My sister's struggle against her captors pulled me forward, each frantic heartbeat stoking the burning flame of urgency. "Get away from her," I shrieked, breaking through the trees, emerging into the clearing where the moonlight bathed everything in silver. Their faces turned toward me, surprised expressions morphing into malicious grins, eyes gleaming with the thrill of the chase. I felt the weight of their gazes, the crushing realization of my exposed vulnerability sweeping over me. There was no turning back now. "Look who's come to play." One of the men sneered as he tightened his hold on my sister, who looked stricken but unyielding, defiance sparking in her wide eyes. I didn't think. I leapt forward, fueled by desperation. "Let her go?" In that moment, chaos erupted. The moon became a witness to the turmoil that unfolded, illuminating the grotesque standoff with cruel clarity. My sister's captors laughed, the chilling sound echoing like a sinister symphony. But in the midst of it, something unexpected happened. Just as I closed the distance, my companion emerged from the shadows, flinging himself into the fray with a wild fervor that took them all by surprise. The unexpectedness of it caught the men off guard. One of them stumbled back, releasing my sister, who instantly lunged toward me. Our bodies collided in a frantic embrace, the fear melting into tears that fell like raindrops. mingling with the desperation of the moment. "I thought I lost you," I gasped, surveying her for injuries in the luminous light, the world around us fading. "I was scared," she admitted, her breath hitching. "I thought they'd get you too." But before I could respond, the grip of one of the men tightened around me, yanking me backward. The panic flooding my veins surged anew. I barely had time to turn before the sickening punch impacted my gut, doubling me over in a wave of pain. "Analyze this," he growled in a tone dripping with malice and victory. Just as darkness threatened to flicker around the edges of my vision, a sudden noise shattered the Tenziona, horn blaring off into the distance, piercing through the night like a beacon of potential salvation. "Get the girl," one of the men shouted, and I struggled to free myself from his hold. But as my sister was pulled back, the two of us caught in a dangerous tug-of-war, a realization dawned, a splinter of panic turning into something else, determination. "They'll never let you take her," I shouted defiantly, pitting every ounce of strength against the weight of fear pressing down. It was a promise as much as a declaration. I would never let her go through that again. And in that taut moment of struggle, I glimpsed my companion, fearlessly gaining his footing, his resolve driving him forward. There was a spark of something real, a glimmer of chance amidst the chaos. "Together," he yelled over the commotion, instilling a sense of unity against the encroaching shadows. As the world spiraled into disarray, our remains of hope clashed violently against despair. The realization hung overhead. We might not win tonight, but we had the strength in numbers, something we never could have anticipated at the start. But just then, as I fought to free myself, a gunshot rang out again. This time closer, my heart froze. In the next second, my lifeline sputtered and dimmed, my sister screamed in terror, and the air shifted, heavy with the promise of danger barreling down upon us once more. Life as we knew it splintered, leaving only the scattered echoes of survival to maneuver between. And the grip of uncertainty promised nothing but chaos. Hanging on the precipice, what if this time was the last? A taut silence enveloped us, thick as the darkness surrounding the riverbank. The gunshot echoed, mingling with my sister's terrified scream, the sound ricocheting through my chest like an errant bullet. The world faded for a heartbeat. I could only see her wide, frightened eyes reflecting the moonlight, and with that, a tidal wave of panic crashed over me. "Run!" my companion shouted, his voice a distant command echoing from somewhere beyond my stunned comprehension. I could barely process the command or see any feasible escape route. My heart, under siege, thudded in my ears, drowning out reason and filling my mind with a singular, urgent directive: protect her at all costs. The silhouette of the man who had held me captive stumbled back, shock mingling with anger on his face, with every pulse of the moonlight illuminating the chaos. I felt the grip on my arm loosen, and with that sliver of liberty, I lunged forward, desperation propelled by love and fear. "Stay with me," I gasped, wrapping my arms around my sister, clutching her tight, as if that could somehow shield us from the impending storm. She trembled in my embrace, but there was a flicker of bravery in her gaze. "I won't leave you," she shouted over the clamor, and in that moment, despite the encroaching darkness, her voice anchored me. The uncertainty that had threatened to drown us both twisted into a resolute defiance. Moments later, the chaos surged once more. The men regained their composure, fueled by rage at our stubbornness. I glanced at my companion. He was grappling with another attacker, his face a mask of determination. "Go," he yelled, a raw conviction in his voice that ignited something deep inside me. In a split-second decision, I maneuvered my sister towards the thicket behind us. "This way," I whispered urgently, pushing her ahead, my heart hammering as I heard footsteps quicken behind us. Their determination palpable, we stumbled through the underbrush, every bramble a reminder of how precarious our escape was, but I clung to hope like a lifeline. If we could reach the dense forest ahead, perhaps we could evade them long enough to find help. Adrenaline surged, blurring the pain blooming in my gut from the earlier blow, but every ounce of me wrestled with the fear: what if we never found that help? As we plunged deeper into the shadows, I caught a glimpse of my companion grappling with our pursuers in the periphery, the violent dance of survival painting a picture I couldn't help but be both horrified and mesmerized by. His presence kept our enemies at bay, a flickering flame in the tempest of despair. It reminded me that even in the grips of darkness, kindness could still shine. Thruff was willing to risk everything for us. But in another moment stolen from hope, a voice shattered the woods. "They're getting away." One of the men howled, and I could hear the anger taking root in their yells. Then came the thunderous sound of more footsteps, the warning crackling through the air like lightning racing to its mark. We were not just outnumbered. We were surrounded. "There's no way out of here," my sister cried, panic tainting her voice. And for a brief moment, that seed of uncertainty burrowed into my mind, threatening to sprout despair. I steadied her, taking a breath that tasted of fear and resolve. "We won't stop fighting," I assured her, though the fear lingered, gnawing at the edges of my courage like a slow leak that threatened to drown me. "We'll find a way." Just as despair burgeoned, we stumbled upon a clearing, a wild opening in the darkness, illuminated only by a sliver of moonlight. It was there I noticed broken branches on the ground, remnants of some forgotten life. But it was what lay beyond those branches that caught my eye. "Look," I pointed, relief flooding my voice. A small embankment dropped toward the water below. "We can jump." "No, it's too high," my sister protested, the terror in her eyes betraying the tiny flicker of courage that remained. "It's either that or we're caught." I pressed, adrenaline propelling me forward as I set my gaze upon the water's turbulent surface. The sound of angry shouts grew louder behind us, and I had no time left to dawdle. "Together," I urged, and with my heart racing, I took her hand. Just as our feet prepared to leap into the unknown, my heart sank into my stomach when we heard a distinct crack, branches splintering beneath heavy boots. The men had arrived at the edge of the clearing, and a sinking realization washed over me, dark and forbidding. Their taunts were loaded with malicious threats, an urgency to end our escape that dripped from their voices. "Get them," one man yelled, and my pulse quickened. We were exposed, vulnerable. With no more time to hesitate, we leapt into the air. We plunged into the cold embrace of the river, the icy water ripping the breath from our lungs as we disappeared beneath the surface, plunging into a moment that felt endless. But the fight wasn't over. As we bobbed back to the surface, gasping for air, I glanced back at the shore only to find a figure emerging from the gloom. My heart lurched. My companion had not jumped with us. "Go," he shouted above the angry shouts now replaced by troubling splashes of water as they fanned out along the bank. "They'll hold them off, no?" I screamed, helplessness gripping me with icy fingers as the currents grabbed hold of us, pulling us further into the embrace of secrecy. And just like that, our brave companion became a solitary beacon for our escapee, a sacrifice I desperately hoped would not define our journey. With tears mingling with the river's cold ebb and flow, I pulled my sister against me, forcing her to move downstream instead, determined that whatever fate awaited us, we would brave it together, even if it felt like our world was shattering. But when I turned to glance back, filled with dread at what we left behind, I caught a glimpse of one of the Mina. Darkness lurking behind his eyes gave me pause. It wasn't just a shadow of anger I saw. It was leashed vengeance, and a haunting echo of familiarity gripped me. Tithe knew me. "Run," I shouted again, terror igniting my heart once more. But now, it was not just for our freedom. It was for the truth that seemed to pull just out of reach, promising an unrelenting storm in our future if I could not unearth who he really was. The water churned violently around us as my sister and I fought against the current, the icy grip reminding me of how fragile our situation truly was. Each stroke we took toward the safety of the bank felt like a desperate plea against the impending darkness that had begun to consume my thoughts. I could see the shore slipping away, the jagged trees lining the river resembling monstrous arms reaching out to reclaim what we had just fought to escape. "Keep swimming. We have to get to the other side," I shouted, glancing back at the shouts still piercing the night air. Fear erupted in my chest as I imagined the armed men closing in, their shouts morphing into growling predators eager to reclaim their quarry. My sister inhaled sharply, her breathing ragged, but her eyes, all trepidation and resolve, stayed locked on mine. "That I'm trying," she gasped, and in the depths of her struggle, I caught a glimpse of my own panic reflected back at me. What if they catch us? I pushed down the despair swirling within me, gritting my teeth against the rising tide of hopelessness. Then we fight, I replied firmly, my voice a lifeline in the dark. We are stronger than they think. I in the shadows behind us. The sound of splashes erupted, telling me that the men had entered the water. The realization sent a jolt through my body, a surge of adrenaline that propelled us forward. My sister gasped beside me, and with every stroke, I could feel the cold tension of fear tightening around my chest, threatening to pull me under. Just as I thought we would be engulfed, I spotted a narrow strip of land ahead, breaking up the relentless flow of Watero watery island of hope. My heart raced as I pushed us toward it, the grip of desperation urging me on. Just a little more, I called, striving to sound optimistic even as the fire of fatigue threatened to extinguish my own flames of will. The ground beneath our feet was rocky and treacherous as I scrambled to pull my sister onto the shore, collapsing beside her in exhaustion. We both gasped for air, the adrenaline still coursing through our veins, latching onto the belief that we could escape. Yet, in the fractured remnants of that belief, despair loomed, taking hold like a damp fog that suffocated us. Suddenly, a voice arose, slicing through my resolve. "There they are," one of the men shouted, and my stomach dropped at the realization that we were still far from safe. "Get them before they regroup. Run," I gasped out, taking my sister's hand once more, the moment solidifying our shared determination. We fled deeper into the woods, fearful glances thrown back as the sounds of pursuit hung over us like dark clouds on the horizon. As we hurried through the forest, branches clawing at our jackets, I stumbled on the uneven ground, my thoughts split between the urgency of the moment and the gnawing fear that intertwined with my memories. The man I had glimpsed earlier, the flicker of recognition in his eyes, haunted me. It felt as though I had crossed paths with a ghost from a past I didn't fully understand. Who was he? And how could we have found ourselves caught in this web of chaos that felt both foreign and painfully familiar? "Where do we go now?" my sister asked breathlessly as we came to an abrupt halt, the fear cutting into her words. "There has to be a cabin or a house nearby," I replied, scanning the expanse of tall pines surrounding us, desperate to find any sign of refuge. "We just need a place to lay low, regroup." But as I searched the shadowy trees, my heart sank at the realization that we were utterly alone. An icy wind swept through the branches above, echoing the trepidation tightening its grip on my chest. "Over there," my sister exclaimed suddenly, pointing through the thicket where I spotted a faint glow flickering in the distance. Without waiting for a second thought, I dragged her along, the warm light promising a semblance of safety beyond the chaos. But a nagging doubt rattled in my mind. We were moving blindly towards something unknown. The risk of ambush is lurking like a hidden beast that we emerged from the thicket to find. An old, dilapidated cabin, its facade rotting in time, yet the light flickered in the window like a beacon. It was a lifeline presented in desperation, and my protective instincts surged forward, compelling me to take that leap of faith. "Stay close," I whispered, and the trust in my sister's eyes emboldened my resolve even as tinges of doubt danced in the back of my mind. We approached the door, the creak of the hinges echoing our unwanted intrusion into this abandoned sanctuary. Inside, the musty air carried remnants of a forgotten warmth, but there was no time to linger as we stepped into the cabin. However, something pinned my feet to the ground, the object resting on the dusty table before us. A journal, its pages yellowed and curled, caught my attention. My heart raced as I recognized the handwriting. The neat print is tied to a name lost in the fragments of memory. It was my mother's. "What is it?" my sister asked, confusion clouding her eyes as she peered over my shoulder. I hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on my heart like a stone. "It's hers," I breathed out, every word carrying the weight of an untold story that had long evaded me. "I don't understand. Why would it be here?" Before I could search for answers, a noise outside shattered the fragile moment. Heavy footsteps approached, and the world spun into chaos once more. A sense of urgency crashed over me, colliding with the revelations swirling within. The enemies were closing in. We were trapped between the past I longed to decode and a future that promised only darkness. But as I reached for the journal, desperate to unravel the connection to my mother, a voice called out from the shadows, and my heart plummeted in horror. Don't think you can run forever, the voice taunted, laced with a chilling familiarity. I know all your secrets and soon, you'll wish you never remembered. With those words, the air thickened, leaving no room for doubt. The past was far from buried, and the answers I sought were rushing back, ready to ignite a fire we were not prepared to manage. The air hung heavy with dread, the tension palpable as I gripped the journal tighter, its pages whispering secrets I may not be ready to confront. The voice outside filled the cabin with an ominous weight that made my skin crawl, each word taunting like a knife. I glanced at my sister, the innocence in her eyes now clouded with fear. "We need to find a way out," I whispered, urgency pressing against my thoughts. In a flurry of instinct, I shoved the journal into my jacket and ushered her toward a door at the back of the cabin. "It's just a storage room, but it might lead us to another exit." My heart raced as we crept across the dusty floor, every creak a reminder that danger lurked outside. We reached the door. Its handle felt cold under my grip, and with a deep breath, I pushed it open. The dark room beyond was cluttered but offered the solace of shadow it might hide us, at least for a moment. As we slipped inside, I felt a flicker of hope ignite. But even in that cramped space, I couldn't escape the pull of the journal. My mind spun with fragments of memories I had buried deep, memories of my mother's laughter echoing through the hallways of our old home, her soft voice guiding me with stories of perseverance and courage. She believed in us, I murmured to my sister, more for my own reassurance than hers. "We can't let the past define you as a D. Oh, you think it's really her journal?" My sister's voice trembled, breaking the stillness. "I don't know," I admitted, heart sinking with uncertainty. "But if it is, it could hold the key to understanding why we're in this mess and how to get out." Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside. My breath caught in my throat as the voice returned, closer now. "I can smell your fear, little mice. Hiding won't save you." The mocking laughter slithered into the cabin, wrapping around my throat like a vice. I looked at my sister's face, now pale with terror. "We have to move, now," I urged, pushing her away from the door. The last thing we could afford was to be cornered like animals. With no time to lose, I frantically scanned the room and spotted a small window high on the wall. "There," I pointed, heart hammering at the idea of escape. "If we can reach that, we can climb out and find another way." My sister nodded, determination replacing some of her fear. "Help me." Together, we shoved aside boxes and crates, creating a makeshift step to climb. As I hoisted her up, I glanced around for any sign of our pursuers, praying that the sound of our scuffling would not betray us. My heart pounded, the fabric of the moment stretching thin with every passing second. Come on," I urged, dread gnawing at my insides as she scrambled to the window ledge. Just as she began to squeeze through, the door behind us rattled violently. The men were so close I could almost taste the acrid fear in the air. "Go." I pushed my sister through the opening, panicked urgency coursing through me. "Get to the other side." Just as she tumbled out into the night, I felt a heavy weight crash onto the door, splintering wood shattering the moment like glass. With no time to follow, I lunged for the door, instinctively grabbing the old shovel propped against the wall. "Stop right there." The chilling voice rang out, and dread flooded my veins as I turned to face the looming shadow. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a familiar face that twisted my stomach into knots. "You didn't think I'd let you escape that easily, did you?" The man was someone I knew, someone I had trusted. The realization hit harder than any confrontation, spinning my world into chaos. "Why?" I croaked, heart hammering at my temples. "Why are you helping them?" His expression shifted, a mix of regret and resolve. "I had no choice. They know things, secrets you aren't ready to hear. And if you find out, it's not just you they'll come for." My breath hitched as a torrent of emotions surged within me. Betrayal, confusion, and anger all swirled together into a tempest. "You were supposed to protect us," I raged, gripping the shovel tightly, unwilling to back down even as my heart faltered. "Please," he said softly, as if my pain struck a chord deep within him. "Just listen, there's more at stake than you realize. If you expose the truth, if you delve into her past, you'll bring down a storm you can't contain." Before I could absorb his words, a shout echoed from outside. urging us both to act before the moment slipped away entirely. What are you talking about? I couldn't help but plead, desperate to grasp at any shred of understanding. But with a swift glance toward the door, he stepped back, torment etched across his face. You're running out of time. Whatever you do, trust no one, not even me. My heart sank, the crushing knowledge that the path ahead was fraught with danger igniting the fear I fought to conceal. The betrayal of such a familiar face only seemed to heighten the stakes, intertwining our fates in a way that left me breathless. Before I could respond, he vanished into the shadows as the men outside closed in, their chaotic footsteps growing ever louder. I stumbled backward, the weight of uncertainty thickening the air around me. I had to find my sister. I had to figure out the truth behind my mother. But now another concatenation loomed. Who could I trust? With a renewed sense of urgency, I clutched the shovel tighter and lunged toward the shattered doorway, determined to find my sister and flee into the night. But the curtain of confusion hung heavy over me, threatening to unravel the very fabric of who I thought I was. As I spilled out into the moonlit woods, the shadows of trees loomed tall, and the danger awaited in the dark corners of my mind. Maybe this was the time to confront everything I had buried, but the terror of remembering what I never wanted to know gripped at my soul. And just as I caught sight of my sister in the distance, a cold chill enveloped the air, a whisper threading through the pines. I will find you, it promised, a haunting echo that refused to let me forget me past was not done with me yet. The night air was thick with tension as I sprinted through the underbrush, each footfall muffled by fallen leaves, the moon casting a ghostly glow around me. I could just make out my sister's silhouette ahead, hunched over, her shoulders shaking. Panic surged in my chest. I needed to reach her before whatever was hunting us closed in. Lena, I shouted, desperation weaving into my voice. She turned, wide-eyed, and instantly I felt the weight of what lay ahead. I risked a glance back toward the cabin, the place where so many memories, both bitter and sweet, lingered in the air. You're safe, I said, attempting to buoy her spirits, but the tremble in my own voice betrayed the fear swirling within me. We have to keep moving. The sounds of pursuit behind us were an ominous crescendo, each crack of a branch or rustle of leaves making the hairs on my neck stand on end. What did you want? She asked, her breaths quickening. Nothing good, I replied, brushing aside the gnawing uncertainty. But it doesn't matter now. We need to find a place to hide until first light. As we stumbled deeper into the woods, shadows danced among the trees, and darker thoughts began creeping into my mind. I feared what awaited us in the stillness, the questions of my mother's past, the doubts of trust, and the truth of the man I had once admired. I can't believe it was him, I murmured, almost to myself. Who? Lena quivered, still scanning the trees for any sign of danger. The man from the cabin. I hesitated, the words weighing heavily on my tongue. It doesn't matter. What matters now is us. Just then, a glimmer of light flickered in the distance, casting long, eerie shadows across the forest floor. I gripped Lena's hand tighter. Did you see that? She nodded, her eyes wide. It could be a way out. Or maybe it's them. I took a breath, summoning the courage that had been threatened by despair. We'll have to risk it. Stay close. We pressed onward, the light growing brighter. But with each step, a sense of foreboding began to creep in the realization that the light might not offer salvation. My heart raced, the pounding matching the rhythmic pounding of my footsteps. As we reached a clearing, the source of the light resolved into the flickering flames of a campfire, surrounded by a circle of thick, ancient trees. Its glow felt warm, inviting, yet the unease in my gut told me it could also be a trap. This might be a bad idea, Lena whispered, her voice trembling. I know, I replied, my resolve wavering. But instinct pushed me forward, and just as I hesitated, a figure emerged from behind the trees, silhouetted against the flames. Hello there, said a soft voice, smooth and calm. You look like you could use some help. The figure stepped into the light, revealing an older woman, her long braids streaked with gray, her face a map of kindness etched in deep lines. She wore a patchwork cloak, its colors vibrant even in the dim light, and in her hands, she held a small lantern. Please, don't be afraid. I mean you no harm. You are safe here, she assured us, tilting her head slightly, as if appraising our situation. What's going on? Who are you? I asked, still on guard. I am just a traveler. Like you, she said with a gentle smile. I saw the fire while I was wandering and sensed you needed shelter. Lena reflexively cuddled closer to me. We can't stay here. Not with them searching for us. The woman's brow knitted in concern. Those who hunt you are relentless, but they are not invincible. She pulled an old, leathery book from her cloak, opening it to reveal faded pages filled with intricate etchings. And you, my dear, have a strength within you that may be beyond your understanding. You must learn to harness it. Confusion flooded my thoughts at her words. What are you talking about? We're just trying to survive. Survival is only the beginning, she replied, her gaze steady. Your mother's past is intertwined with forces you know nothing about. The journal she left behind whispers secrets that, if uncovered, can protect you. My thoughts raced. My mother's laughter echoed in my mind like a distant memory overshadowed by fear. What do you know about it? The woman tilted her head, her eyes glimmering. I know much more than you realize. And the truth awaits in that journal. However, I warn you, unraveling those truths comes at a cost. The storm that follows may not be one you are ready to face. As I contemplated her warning, a deep rumble echoed through the trees, shaking the ground beneath us. A shadow broke at the forest's edge, and on instinct, I took a step away from the fire, dragging Lena with me. Stay back, I shouted, raising the shovel in defense. But the woman only smiled knowingly. You cannot fear the shadows, child. You must learn to fight them. The shadow lunged forward, revealing the ghastly face of one of the men from the cabin. There you are? He growled, eyes gleaming with malice. We found you at last. Just as I prepared to defend us, the figure behind him lunged into the clearing, another familiar face stepping from the dark. My betrayal flashed before me as the man from earlier emerged, eyes filled with desperation. No, don't hurt them. Why should we trust you? I spat, the air thick with tension. But it was too late for caution. The shadows around us began to close in, and in that moment, I realized that not only did the peril not cease, but our true battle was also just beginning. Lena, I whispered frantically, gripping her hand tighter as the older woman raised her lantern, illuminating the encroaching darkness with a warm glow. Whatever happens, we face it together. And as we stood united, the whispering wind carried a chilling promise, echoing through the trees. You've awakened a hunger, and the night will answer. The distant sound of chanting and growling filled the air, like the wilderness itself was alive and watching. Shadows danced under the light of the fire as the man from the cabin, my once ally, stepped forward through the trees, a ghost lost in regret. I felt a sudden surge of anger and betrayal, the weight of the past crashing down upon me. He had become the embodiment of my nightmare. What do you want? I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. Why are you working with them? He didn't answer immediately, his face cast in darkness. The community I had always trusted felt like a thin veil of deception. You need to know the truth, he said finally, his voice shaky yet firm. There are forces at play greater than you understand. Your mother, she was involved in something dangerous. Before I could gather my thoughts, the other men lunged forward, snapping my attention to the pressing danger. We don't have time for that. One of them snarled, the madness in his eyes glinting dangerously. Get them, wait, shouted the woman, her voice imbued with a power that silenced the chaos surrounding us. This is not their time. The truth must come first. You cannot extinguish hope for fear of what it might reveal. I felt the rumble within me, torn between trusting a stranger and clinging to my sister. Yet, in that flicker of a moment, the air thickened with revelation. The old woman was right. We needed clarity, and I was ready to face whatever shadows lay in my mother's past. Don't you see? I said, my voice clearer now as I turned toward the men. You're not just trying to reclaim us. You're afraid of what we might uncover. You have no idea what she was capable of, and it terrifies you. You may take my sister from me, but you won't silence the truth. Their eyes blazed, and for a split second, I could see doubt flicker within their ranks. But it quickly faded into sinister smiles as they moved closer. It wasn't rage fueling them, it was desperation. You think you know the game, girl? The man replied scornfully, advancing toward me. You're playing a hand you don't deserve. Just then, the old woman stepped forward, raising her lantern high. You don't see the power you possess. You've been taught to fear it. Time to awaken, child. Suddenly, As if reacting to her words, the shadows twisted and folded closer. They enveloped me in a cloak of darkness, yet freed me from despair. Energy surged through me, a force I couldn't comprehend. Images flooded my mind, my mother's laughter, her resilience, and a voice whispering secrets from long ago. This was the moment I had drawn breath, for the truth was rising to claim me. "Lena," I breathed, reaching for my sister, who stood against the edge of fear, her eyes wide with curiosity rather than dread. "You have to trust me. We can do this. Together." Her gaze steadied, filled with belief. "I trust you," she replied softly, and in that moment, it felt like everything unfolded, the warmth of sisterly love glimmering brighter than any lurking darkness. "Let's find out what she knew," I shouted fervently, the fear dissolving into adrenaline, transforming energy into a torrent, pushing me on. With my sister beside me, I turned toward the shadows, ready to confront the men who threatened to pull us apart. "You want my fear?" I shouted. "Then come and take it." Chaos erupted as we charged forward, me sister and I entwined in purpose. The old woman's lantern shielded us against the encroaching shadows, and together we faced them down like warriors braving the storm. The men faltered, caught off guard by our sudden ferocity, but their madness ignited, driving them forward with renewed fury. "Get back!" I screamed, wielding the shovel like a weapon, prepared to fight for the truth, for my sister, for the legacy of a woman I barely knew but felt within my bones. As our two worlds collided, something incredible began to happen. The shadows began to retreat, as if drawn away by the light we carried within. The men's expressions changed, flickering from aggression to confusion as they realized there was an entirely different kind of strength surging through us. "Run!" the man from the cabin shouted in a desperate attempt to regain control. But even as he lunged toward us, the power within started to push him back into the obscurity. Lena glanced at me, disbelief morphing into determination. "We can finish this," she said, eyes shimmering with raw bravery. "Together." With that, we surged forward, feeling the collective belief of our past underpinning our steps. The darkness receded further, leaving a glow illuminating our path. And as we dashed past the men, their grip on reality waned, and they fell back into the hidden shadows they had conjured. We spilled out into the cool night air, laughter bubbling in relief. But there was no time to linger. The chaos was not yet over. A raging storm was still brewing just beyond the forest, pressing against the fabric of existence, our choices now forged in the flames of truth. "Where do we go?" Lena asked, breathless as we stopped to catch our bearings. "I don't know yet," I admitted, scanning the horizon illuminated by moonlight. The path stretched out like a canvas waiting to be painted. "But he'll find the answers. He'll uncover what was hidden, and together, we can break the curse." Just then, the lingering echo from before returned. Shadows still swirled, circling like vultures hovering just out of reach. I could feel their despair and anger pulsating through the air, but something told me I could wield it if only we chose to lead with love. "Let's keep moving," I said, gripping my sister's hand tightly. The darkness may follow us, but we were stronger now, united by a bond that no force could break. If my mother had hidden secrets within her past, I would unlock every last one. If it brought me closer to understanding, it would all be worth it. As we forged our way into the night, the weight of what lay ahead felt tangible. Yet the journey would lead us to the heart of our truth. "The storm's waiting," I reminded her softly, glancing back briefly, "but it only makes us stronger." And together we stepped forward, hearts ablaze with newfound purpose, ready to uncover not only the mysteries of the past, but the power that lay dormant within, the kind of power that could defy darkness itself. With one last glance into the woods, I spoke a silent promise to my mother, wherever she was. "I will not let fear decide our fate." There, with the opening chords of our next chapter vibrating in the air around us, I understood this wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming the narrativia story of strength, love, and the truths that dared to emerge from the shadows. And as we ventured forth, ready to explore the unknown, I could almost hear the whisper of hope carried on the wind. "You are not alone. You are stronger than you know."